Hey everybody, today we're going to be reviewing Cobalt Red, How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives by Siddharth. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, probably not. This is essential nonfiction reading. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Go pick up this book right now. You should read this if you want to understand cobalt. Cobalt is the material that is used that makes our ion batteries, rechargeable batteries, things that power our phones, our laptops, Teslas, cars. All rechargeable batteries are used from cobalt. Most of the world's cobalt is actually mined from Congo. And perhaps this is some general knowledge that you are aware of, but this book does a comprehensive overview of the ground up, meaning the mining in Congo. And this book reveals significant many things, just the grave human conditions that these are mined from, how, again, the Congolese people are basically, many of them are just in modern day slavery. And I think this book really, its objective to me was to expose this, like expose the cobalt mining industry, but also our part in it. And that's essential. And I really think if you want to understand, the other thing this book does a really good job of is if you want to understand cobalt in the world order, meaning how does cobalt play into different power dynamics between states like China, US, Lebanon, even the Congo government itself, other states, and how these kind of factor into creating these conditions that the Congolese people are really suffering through. So again, this is essential reading for objective accomplished. So I have a little bit of a different rating system for nonfiction books. So the first category is what is the objective and was it accomplished? And so the objective to me at least was exposing the cobalt industry and providing the reader with essential information on the supply chain of cobalt and from the ground up, exposing the conditions, providing a, real, the author went to Congo many different times, went to these different mining sites, interviewed a lot of people from all throughout the supply chain of how cobalt ends up getting refined into the material that ends up being built for our phones, and doing that from the narrative of Congo. I just want to read a quote right here that I think is essential. And it's tempting to point the finger at local actors as the agents of the carnage, to be it corrupt politicians, exploitive cooperatives, unhinged soldiers, or extortionist bosses. They all played the roles, but they were all symptoms of a more malevolent disease. The global economy run amok in Africa. The depravity and indifference unleashed in the children working at the Twemzebe is a direct consequence of a global economic order that preys on the poverty, vulnerability, and devalued humanity of the people who toil at the bottom of the global supply chains. Declarations by multinational corporations that rights and the dignity of every worker in their supply chains are protected and preserved seem more disingenuous than ever. This kind of paragraph, I think, kind of summarizes showing this, but from the cobalt perspective. The author accomplishes that very well, whether through their structure, their writing, and so on and so forth. So 4.75 out of 5. The only nitty-gritty critique I have is that the author obviously had to make a narrative choice to just focus on Congo and not really go into China or the actual refining process, and also there was also a lack of access of that. But I would have it would have been, I think, really informative to have a little bit more information about that refinement process in China. But of course, he actually literally risked his life at some point to be able to document this. So that's just I wouldn't even call that a critique, just a little nitpick. And so that goes into the next category, which is structure and prose. The structure of this book is really well written. I like that. What is cobalt? And then it goes into why is cobalt, I suppose, have a supply chain, and what is that supply chain? Goes into the history of Congo, about why is the country of Congo at its current point, providing a lot of important and relevant historical narrative, especially about how Congo was colonized and how the different colonial imperialistic powers had a interest for the regime to be changed, and how that played into the outcome that is at the moment. And I also like that it provided who is in Congo, whether it was a certain businessman. China, I think it was like, there was a statistic that 80% of the deals are done by China. Lebanon is in there, and then these kinds of things. And then providing this kind of context, and then going diving into, okay, the different minds in Congo, and then providing narrative and interviews and information from all people along the lines, whether it's the people literally mining, children mining, to the people impacted by the villages, the motorcyclists that transport the cobalt. There's so many different actors in this supply chain that he really goes into all of them, providing this kind of historical and economic context. I should add that the economic context is essential to understand why does this supply chain exist, and that objective is accomplished. So, and I have to say that the writer is exceptional. I do think sometimes nonfiction writers make a choice with their stylized writing, and it can be a bit, let's say, the decision. I don't like when nonfiction authors start making up stuff to add to their narrative. That really always takes me out of a nonfiction book. But the author does not do that here. But what the author does do here, with a really beautifully crafted prose, is to provide the human condition. Like, it feels like it's coming from the human soul. The way that the author is describing the scenes that he's viewing, the conditions of which some of the people he's interacting with, the conditions of a view of how a mountain was destroyed. He's providing really poetic, descriptive language, which sometimes can be viewed as bullshit. Like sometimes a nonfiction writer can write descriptively just to show their adeptness at being a very descriptive or poetic writer. That is not the case here at all. In fact, it enhances the writing to such a degree that you really feel it really connects you on a human level of this cobalt mining and all the people affected by it, and the way that it's written really enhances it. And it's the beautiful is the wrong word, but it is extremely well crafted, and really provides a human connection that has a lot of depth. It's super deep in this way, and that when he's writing about the people's conditions, it's horrifying, it's heartbreaking, it's shattering, thought-provoking, and so many different other adjectives. So that's the part that really pierces the human soul, I think, the way that this is written. I mean, it's only 300 pages, but it feels longer, but not in a bad way. Just the amount of stories you're hearing, the narratives you're hearing, and all the information that you're learning. So again, that's a testament to the author. The next category is going to be emotional impact and thought-provokingness. This is obviously a 5 out of 5. I mean, the human impact of these people toiling through at the bottom of this cobalt supply chain, I think the author accomplishes objective of no filter, providing you, these are the conditions that allow us the comfort of our laptops, our phones, and our daily work, and this no filter, and then also being able to ask, not being, with these, it's odd to say this, but sometimes authors with this can be quite biased. And what I mean by that, obviously people are suffering, but the author was able to self-reflect and ask questions and then provide the evidence, whereas sometimes I think authors can go just super deep into this, and I would probably be guilty of that, to the point where they're not self-reflective enough to ask certain questions about, okay, is this legitimate? Is this legitimate? No, the author does a great job, and that, in fact, is more thought-provoking and even more emotionally impactful, that I know that the author is doing his due diligence on trying to ascertain all information and asking all the right questions and going physically to places to uncover the information themselves and asking as many people as possible. It just makes everything hit so much harder because you know the author's doing their due diligence. That's a 5 out of 5. Again, this is essential reading. I think this is essential 21st century reading. And it seems that this is going to be the case for the next 20 years. Learning about how China is super invested in this and how much they control that trade and how the past led to this point, and this self-reflectiveness of his writing is super engaging. Like that paragraph I just read to you. Here's another one. Most people do not know what is happening in the cobalt mines of the Congo because the realities are hidden beneath numerous layers of multinational supply chains that serve to erode accountability. The ongoing exploitation of the poorest people of the Congo by the rich and powerful invalidates the purported moral foundation of contemporary civilization and drags humanity back to a time when the people of Africa were valued only by their replacement cost. The implication of this moral reversion, which it is itself a form of violence, stretched far beyond Central Africa across the entire global south, where a vast subclass of humanity continues to eke out a subhuman existence in slave-like conditions at the bottom of the global economic order. The research done in this book, essential reading. It's just completely essential reading in my opinion. Next, we're going to go to the category of a wrong way to frame it, but I can't think of another way to frame it, and that's enjoyment. Obviously, you're not enjoying hearing about people suffer. I suppose enjoyment is subject material being done in a way that is engaging and serving its goals while doing due diligence to not just the audience, but the subject material, meaning are the people of Congo being served correctly with the way that this is written? And the answer is yes. I suppose, and then is the audience done, given its due justice by the research, the writing, and the formula of the book? And yeah, absolutely. And again, I have to mention the stylized writing. Oftentimes can be off-putting in a nonfiction book, but in this case, it really enhances and it makes everything connect more on a human level, human soul level. So. That's why I really thoroughly enjoyed the book and thoroughly was emotionally impacted and thought-provoked. And the last category is, did I learn something? And that's a 5 out of 5. I think all we generally have some information or knowledge on cobalt, and perhaps we have some understanding that it came from Congo or at least Central Africa, and we all had some general knowledge that it is directly tied to our everyday life. But I think this book made me really reflect on, okay, what is my place in this supply chain? How much should I be aware of this? How unaware of am I of these kinds of things? And maybe perhaps my dollar does matter, and like we all have our part in this global economic order. Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of questions here to be asked, but just again, the objective is, okay, cobalt, what is it? How is it mined? How's it processed? How is it refined? How does it get from the actual mines to the refinement? Who are the actors? Who are the stakeholders? I learned everything, and the book provided all this kind of information in a structural way, and also in a way that was comprehensive but not elongated. I think. This book is only 300 pages, but man, like it felt like 600 with everything that I learned. And then you have the human stories provided in the correct context that does everything justice. So you have the human condition that does, he does everything in justice. And so you're just hearing from that human perspective on what's happening and how are people living through these conditions. What are their opinions? What are the routine in their life? What are their dreams? What are their hopes? All of these different factors that create this supply chain, create this system that people are living through. He really goes through all aspects. So essential reading, 5 out of 5. It was my book of the year for 2025, and I will always recommend this book to anybody, and I look forward to read more work from this author. So please let me know what you think in the comments. I hope that this book gets sold more. I'm not sure if this book is on a lot of bookshelves or not, but it should be. It should be read by everybody. It's essential reading. So 5 out of 5. Let me know what you think in the comments.